Welcome back. It's the Gangs All Here podcast, our New York Jets podcast from the New York Post. I am Jake Brown alongside my co-host Brian Costello, Jets beat writer for the Post. It'll be time to shine in a few minutes as Adam Schein joins us. I mentioned the story the last show where his last game was a dozen years ago. Cruise 99. He sees Holland Tunnel 99. And we'll talk to him about that. And we'll talk about Aaron Rodgers. That show Friday was a big one on YouTube. We did some numbers on that one. I guess people were listening and watching Kaz on the weekend, on their Thanksgiving weekend. They were locked into the Gangs All Here podcast.
I tell
so
you,
we
Jake,
appreciate that.
I did a Twitter Spaces the other night for my guy Pete Italy on Twitter.
Petey?
Asked me to do it. Yeah, Petey. And there was a lot of guys on there who were saying they wish we did more episodes and they love the podcast. And so we got a lot of people were excited about Gangs All Here.
Well, appreciate that. I don't know how we could do more. We already do 2 a week for our mental
every day.
Health. If we did a daily podcast, I'd be jumping off my rooftop. So every day would be tough unless they were like 2-minute little bites and I could do them on my walk to go get coffee. Maybe then I would do it. But we appreciate the support. It's another rough year, but we're trying to take you through it. And, we'll see if it's a full year without Aaron Rodgers, because that's the main story this week. The practice window opened on Wednesday, Kaz. So, practice window for dummies. Just give the explanation of what that means here.
Yeah, so they have 21 days now, Jake. So if you go to the Wednesday before the Commanders game is kind of the magic day. That's something they either have to add him to the roster or he'd be done for the season if they didn't add him to the roster that day. They could do the move like they did with Dwayne Brown and activate him even if he's not ready and let him be on the roster and not play for a little while. If they thought like, hey, maybe he can play against the Browns, but we don't want him playing 2 games in 5 days. Something like, they could do that. But pretty much what it means, Jake, is he can be on the practice field with his teammates. So he can throw passes to Garrett Wilson. He can throw passes to Allen Lazard. He could throw passes to Jason Brownlee. If he was just on IR and he back here, he could be on a side field. I'm sure people have seen us tweet about this. You're on a side field working with the training staff, the strength and conditioning staff. So he could do agility drills. He could throw to them, right? He could throw to but he cannot throw to anyone who's on the Jets roster. So that's kind of the technicality of it, is by activating this window, he can be on the field. I'm not sure how much he's going to do right away. Robert Saleh said, routes against air, which is basically just playing catch. And I would think the plan is then next week, maybe he does a little bit more. And then the week after that, a little bit more. And then they'll see where he's at after that. And they'll see where the team is at before making a decision on whether he plays this season.
Well, routes against air has been the arch nemesis for Jets quarterbacks because they can't get the ball in the air. They can't get first down. They can't score. So there's part of me that's like, I kind of want to see Rodgers back because I don't know if I could do 6 more games of Boyle, Simeon, and maybe even Zach. But you cannot jeopardize next season. You brought up, if they win the next 2, like we'll give our pick for Jets-Falcons. It's not a pretty game. The Falcons somehow are in first place in a lousy division. They are fighting for a division title. So this is a big game for them. If the Jets could beat them, which wouldn't be shocking, and then they do shock the Texans. I know the Texans are 6-5, but that offense is so explosive. Say they win the next 2. Do you see Aaron Rodgers taking his talents to South Beach in Miami in a 7-loss team that if they win out, they likely make the playoffs? You think he could come back in Miami if they win the next 2?
I think it's a conversation, right? I think that's what we'll be talking about. I don't know, because none of us really know medically where he's at. Right. And can he move laterally? Can he run around a little bit? I mean, he's made some references, Jay, to like, all I need is a little square to play quarterback. I just don't think the Jets are going to put him on the field if he can't protect himself and he can't escape the rush. So, that to me is the question right now. We know he can throw it. We've seen him throw it. His arm was never going to be affected by this. The question is, can he protect himself on the field? I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what the risk of re-injury is. I'm going to say, Jake, that doctors don't know what the risk of re-injury is because no one's ever come back this quick. So I don't think they fully will know, what the risks involved here are. But yeah, I think, the Falcons are beatable and the Texans is a good matchup for the Jets. That's a game where you think the defense can probably play pretty well against Stroud, and the Texans defense isn't that good. So maybe the Jets can move the ball a little bit there. And yeah, if you're at 6-7, now we're talking. I think you're one loss away, Jake, from saying it's over. I think when you get to 8 losses, it's probably like, all right, that's it. That's a wrap.
2 is officially over. 1 is likely over.
Likely over. But like, that's going to be the hard part too with this Rodgers conversation. Is it mathematically eliminated that he's not going to come back? Or is it like, okay, the Jets are, what would it be? 5-8. They win the Falcons, lose the Texans. Let's say they're 5-8 going to Miami. And does he try to come back then? So I think this is going to be an interesting thing to watch play out.
Either way, it's tough to see the Jets beat anyone. So it's a conversation for us for the show. In reality, it's probably not happening, but it's a storyline, and it'd be fools to not talk about it. It's a big storyline.
Yeah.
It's fascinating just to see him out there on the practice field. He's defying all the odds, and a lot of this, like I said, it's an ego thing for him. Like, he wants to show everyone who said he's done, he won't come back from this.
I think that's part of it, Jake. But also, to be fair, and I haven't, Aaron hasn't been around. I haven't talked to Aaron, but like watching his interviews with McAfee, I think there's part of him too that feels guilt for what happened.
He said it. Yeah.
I think he feels guilty. I think, he came here and he was very excited to sort of end all the talk about the Jets and make them relevant, make them a playoff team. And then 4 snaps into the season, he goes down. So I think that's a motivator for him too, is just to come back and sort of give this organization who gave up a lot for him, some hope for the end of the season.
Yeah, and he's just worried that Hope leads to another injury because this Jets offensive line hasn't been good. Dwayne Brown was active last week, but didn't play for the first time in his career. Is he going to play this week? Is he just not good enough anymore? Is he too hurt? Like, it's interesting that he wouldn't start last week if he was active.
Yeah, if he caught something, Jake, that Saleh said after the game, he said we wanted to give Dwayne another week to get his mind right. Yeah. So when you say, like, I'm just going to do a little extrapolating here. Like, when you say mind and you have Dwayne's age, I'm wondering if Dwayne is thinking about retiring or not. Like, that's just me speculating. I don't have any information, but does he want to come back to a team that there's nothing to play for? Maybe he's waiting to kind of see. Maybe he wants to play if Aaron comes back, but he's not so sure he wants to play, without Aaron. So I think there's something going on there. Like, obviously, I think he's healthy enough to play. He was on the extra point teams. He played in the game on those, but he didn't play offense. So health wise, that's obviously less of a load, but something's going on there because Saleh said that, get his mind right comment. So we'll see what happens this week. And Wednesday, Saleh didn't sound very convincing that Brown was going to play. He said he thinks Becton's going to be back. He praised Carter Warren a lot, which makes me think Becton goes to left tackle, Carter Warren goes to right tackle this week, would be my guess.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's mind is right is playing with this offense. Like, none of these offensive linemen probably want to be out there. Guys like Chris Glazer and stuff probably do because it's their chance to play. And it seems like we might be entering that time, Cod, where these young guys get more of a chance. We saw sprinkles of Izzy. Maybe there's more Izzy this week against an actual great rookie running back in Bijan Robinson. That's going to be interesting to see. How do they work this out? Like, do we see more targets for guys like Brownlee and Gibson? Are we going to see this youth movement in the final month?
Well, yeah, I mean, Brownlee played more snaps than any other wide receiver last week, Jake. So it happened last week when they made Lazard inactive. I think Lazard will be active this week, but I do think Brownlee will get the majority of the reps there. Izzy was a weird one that he didn't play at all against the Dolphins, which I can't really figure out. Solid.
He didn't play any snaps. I thought he was out there.
No, not at all. So offense. I don't know about special teams. He didn't play any offensive snaps. And Saleh said, I asked Saleh about it Saturday, and he kind of talked about his pass protection. He needs to be better in pass protection, but that's yeah, okay. So he can't play third down. Like put him in a first down then when you're not run the ball. But like Jake, with like what was said about Breece Hall, that he needs to get grimy yards, and Breece hasn't looked like himself. And I'm wondering, is Breece still feeling the effects of the ACL? Like, we kind of all forgot about that because he ran for a lot of yards in those first few games, but he still is a year removed from ACL surgery. Usually it takes 2 years before the guy's fully back. Are we seeing that now with Breece? And if you are, and if he's getting worn down, give Izzy more carries, give Dalvin Cook more carries. I don't understand why they've insisted on just force feeding Breece Hall all the time. He's obviously a great player, but it's not happening right now. Mix some other guys in and see if you can find someone that gets hot.
Yeah, if he doesn't play a ton here this final month, it doesn't matter. Just have him healthy and ready for next year. We all know how good he is. You give him the benefit of the doubt, the injury, no quarterback, backup offensive line. Like, I'm fine with them giving Izzy more time and giving a little Dalvin Cook action as the Jets take on the Falcons. So Becton likely back. Alan Lazard was in timeout for a week. He'll be back and active this week. We'll see how many snaps he gets out there. And who would have thought, Kaz? We went from talking about this team not even on the Tankathon graphic to Kaz tweeting Tankathon graphics right after Thanksgiving in November. I mean, this team, if they lose, they could be arguably in the top 5. This is the second worst record in the AFC above the Patriots, who, gives us a little positivity of how awful they look. It's fun to see that happen and that train wreck in Foxborough. But, man, we're just right above them barely. And this team could be, fighting for a top 5 pick. And that's the other side of this. Like, obviously, you don't play to lose. You're not playing to lose. Like, that's the positive side here is maybe the Jets end up in the top 5 and they can retool this system unless they trade that pick for Devontae Adams, of course, which will be interesting. But, like, that's the benefit of losing these games. Once again, is a freaking draft pick, Kaz. And I don't want to mention any draft prospects until, like, after Hanukkah at least. Maybe before Christmas. Once the Jets get to 9 losses, then we could do a deep dive on who they might draft, okay. But I'm not ready for it yet.
Yeah, I think you've learned, Jake, that even high draft picks don't guarantee success. So I would root for wins if I was a Jets fan. The tanking thing, especially they're not in a market for a quarterback in 2024. They don't need one of those guys. So root for wins, until the playoffs are out of it, root for them to win. I don't think you should be looking at tanking right now.
Well, they won't be tanking Sunday because it could be their final hope when Desmond Ridder and company come to MetLife Stadium. It's going to be 50% chance of rain, a little chilly. Tickets are going for like cheaper than an extra value meal at McDonald's at this point. Like, if you want to go to your first game, you got kids, you want to take them to the first game, this might be the week because it's dirt cheap. You'll just get really bad football, and I highly advise you don't take children to watch this game. Well, Desmond Ridder, luckily, he's a turnover machine for the Jets. He's got 8 interceptions already this year. He was benched for Taylor Heineke. He's not very good. The Falcons, though, as I said before, are in first place. They're tied for first. They lead the tiebreaker. Huge game for them. 1 p.m. Fox. Jets 2.5-point underdogs. Old friend Jonathan Vilma will be on the call with the great Kenny Albert. So looking forward to hearing a former Jet linebacker with Kenny Albert, who is a great dude. That's going to be a fun call. Break the game down for us. Make your pick.
Oh, do I really have to break the game down, Jake?
You can just make a pick. There's not much to break down with the Tim Boyle show.
I'm going to go with a Jets win this week, Jake, to excite you. Yes, what? I'm going to pick them to win. I think the Falcons are not that good. The Jets are not that good. It's going to be an ugly football game. But I do think the Jets defense can control the Falcons, shut them down, and I'm going to go Jets high scoring 17 points, Falcons 13. I'll go Jets 17, Falcons 13 in a thriller at MetLife. Not so much.
This could be historic in the Gangs All Here program because you are taking the Jets and I'm not. I am even taking against the Jets.
That's never happened.
This is literally history in the making. I really want to pick the Jets now that you did, but I don't know. I think the extra practice time and being with the first team. Remember last week, Boyle gets practice because they didn't really have any practice. So he's got a full week under his belt. Maybe that helps.
Not sure how much that helps, Jake. I think the Falcons defense helps.
I also think the ugly weather is going to help Atlanta because they need to force feed Bijan. He is such a talented guy, and Arthur Smith has used him so oddly this year, mixing Algier. And Cordell Patterson's a good player, but you got this stud first-round pick who is a receiver, running back, does it all. And he, just got his first rushing touchdown a few weeks ago. Like, he needs to be fed the rock. And I think in a ugly, weather kind of game, that could end up benefiting the Falcons. I'm going to say 16-13 Falcons. Ooh. So you have 17-13 Jets. Shockingly enough, I'll say 16-13 Falcons. I hope you're right. I love them to be in it. Part of me is like, if they lose, at least the Rodgers conversation ends. But if they win and then find a way to beat the Texans here at MetLife.
Jake, Jake, we got a
begins.
podcast. We don't want the Rodgers conversation to end.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, let's just win out. Let's go 6-0. How about that? How about just shock the world 6-0 somehow, some way, and get it done. Well, a guy who always gets it done on the radio, on TV, on podcasts. It's about that time. Time to shine. Adam Schein joins Gangs All Here next. Gangs All Here podcast. Jake Brown, Brian Costello, New York Post, bringing on a friend of the program. Now, I mentioned him on the podcast the other day because the story was that I don't have Sirius anymore. I am a former Sirius employee. It's like when the ex-girlfriend changes the password for the Netflix, you can't get back on. Couldn't get in the Sirius app anymore. Don't have a car, so I haven't listened as much. Listen in the car with my dad, and this guy was talking about his last NFL game, and I'm like, this guy hasn't been to an NFL game in a dozen years and talks about football for a living. It's almost criminal, but I don't blame him because MetLife Stadium is a dump and it's annoying to get there. So, and he works on Sunday. So now let's welcome on to the show, host of a guy whose name is in every part of his show, and it's rightfully so with a name like this. Shine on Sports, 9 a.m. to noon on Mad Dog Sports Radio, SiriusXM, Channel 82. Time to Shine on CBS Sports Network. And if you hadn't had enough shine, it's the Rise and Shine podcast as well. Adam Schein. The other guy who likes to say my guy like you, it's you and Kenny Anderson are the two guys who love to say my guy. So let's welcome in my guy, Adam Schein. Welcome to the program.
Let me just say, first of all, for the record, I love your pod. I love you, Jake. Love Kaz. Anything for Brian Costello, you know that. And for the record, me not being to an NFL game has nothing to do with my take on MetLife Stadium. It's solely and simply because I work on Sundays. Monday nights are impossible, and then you have to get up and I got to work the next day. You mentioned all the shows and whatnot, but it's kind of crazy. And the story is my 15-year-old was going to Taylor Swift, and she was in a car with about 7 other friends and girls, and she gets to the stadium. She goes, "Oh, first time at MetLife Stadium," and all her friends just stared at her, mouth open, aghast, like, "What the hell? You haven't been to a Giants game or a Jets game? Your dad does what he does for a living. They've been to 1,000 Yankee games, Knicks games, Syracuse games, but I own a basketball game. Never a Jet or Giant game. That's occupational hazard. I hadn't been to a Jet game or a Giant game or an NFL game since Shoddy ruined Christmas, the Victor Cruz game in 2011, and that was when I was working for SNY. Last game I was at as a fan was the Harbaugh Bowl, Thanksgiving night, because my wife is from Baltimore. So, Rodgers, obviously, I love Aaron Rodgers. Jolie, who's kind of a bit of a Packer fan from back in the day, she's like, we're going to that game, and we enjoyed every single second of it. Again, there's no Jet fandom or allegiance in our family, so it was definitely a fun time and a great experience, and we all can't wait to go back.
And there won't be any Jets fandom after that game with any of your kids.
It's funny.
Wow, that Hail Mary was awesome. I'm going to root for the Jets.
Well, the crazy thing, Shine, about it is you were the Cruz game, 99-yard touchdown.
Yards.
You took the Holland tunnel to get Javon Holland going 99 yards again for a touchdown. So you have some kind of fascination with being at games and 99-yard back-breaking touchdowns against the Jets.
It's amazing. I think I'm officially banned if you're a Jets fan. You're not going to let me within 99 feet of the stadium. I mean, it's crazy. And we had great seats. We were about 15 rows up from the end zone, right where Holland picked it off, and you can literally see it. I don't know how you felt, Kaz, watching it, but first of all, I don't know what the hell Salah was doing. Second of all, when he caught it, we all looked at each other like, oh my God, he could go. All the skill position players are back in the end zone. One move, bam. I mean, that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen live, unless, of course, you're a Jets fan.
Yeah, no, you can see it when he caught it, and it's only the Jets. I'm wondering, Shine, a lot of Jets fans remember when you did the SNY postgame shows. Those were some great postgame shows. Do you when you see with the state of the Jets right now, could you imagine what post games would be like for you right now, analyzing and dissecting all this offensive football you're seeing from the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, it would be something. One of the fun things, and remember this, I was for SNY Jets post game. We We started that in 2006, which was year one for Mangini.
Right.
And I left the post-game show in 2000, before 2012. So we actually got to see a lot of good football.
Yeah.
You know, all things, and the thing you always ask for, I think, when you do those shows, Kaz, you just want the Jets to be relevant. That's the whole thing. You want to, and those years, you know, especially with Rex, they were always relevant. They were in the conversation. They would have big wins. I can't imagine now, and I love Aaron Rodgers. I thought the Jets were going to be great this year. I can't imagine being a Jets fan and or, like you asked, doing that show. You know, I'm pretty outspoken anti the Zach Wilson pick, anti him being on the roster this year, anti him, you know, staying with him as the backup quarterback after Rodgers got hurt. I mean, it's deja vu all over again. So that would be pretty mind-numbing to be doing that when it's the same old with regard to the Jets. And listen, Tim Boyle, I mean, he shouldn't be on an NFL roster. He's Aaron's friend. I mean, let's be honest here. So I'm waiting
for them to sign you, Schein. You're a friend of Rodgers, right? Like,
let's go. I'm ready to go. I'm warming up the arm, guys.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You know, your time at SNY, Jets good, solid team, back-to-back AFC championship. Kaz gets on the beat, and the Jets haven't won since he's got there. So you have two different worlds, the curse of the Kaz and Schein, Jets winning football. So maybe Schein's got to join, you know, Steve Gelbs and the crew on the SNY post game again. You know, when you were leaving is when I interned. I was getting you, Carlin, and Bobby Ojeda coffee and pizza and whatever it was before like Mets pregame, before Loudmouth came on. Just great show. Miss Loudmouth, miss Beer Money, another classic SNY show with Carlin. I don't know how they haven't brought Beer Money back. I mean, that's an easy 30-minute programming, fantastic stuff. So those were the good old days of SNY. Don't you miss that? Like the New York sports scene and, you know, winning team. And the Giants were great then. You were talking about a Giants team that, you know, went to the Super Bowl 2 times.
And Kaz, you tell me if you remember it this way, but I'll never forget, like before that game and even the weeks leading up, like the Jets had a real Super Bowl feel. Like that you felt like the Jets could run the table, win those games, make a run. Giants, they were an afterthought, and obviously they win that game, they win the Super Bowl. It is kind of crazy, though, when you consider what New York football's been over the last 10 years. I mean, the garbage of garbage. And, you know, this was supposed to be the changing of the guard. And, you know, we had Aaron Rodgers on the show on SiriusXM, and Aaron said all the right things about that. I mean, he's watching 86 Mets documentaries to visualize what it would be like to win in New York. And, you know, I thought this was going to be a special season. I didn't predict Super Bowl. I thought that there were some better teams in the AFC, and it's got to be even worse, I think, for a Jets fan. You know, there are 4 teams that are better than everyone else in the AFC when you debate the order, right? With Kansas City and Baltimore and Jacksonville and Miami. This is the year where, and obviously Burrow's hurt, Josh Allen and the Bills, and Sean McDermott's been a mess this year. Anyone who makes the dance can make a run. And with the Jets defense, if Aaron was solid, if Aaron was healthy and just solid, and I think he would have been more than that, obviously they could have made a run. Of all the same old Jets, and I hate that expression. I wish it was dead and buried. But my goodness, this just feels like only the Jets when you look at this season. I'm sick for all the great Jets fans.
We're recording this on Wednesday, and so they just opened up the practice window for Rodgers. He's out on the practice field right now as we're recording this. You've interviewed him a lot of times, Adam. What were your thoughts, you know, when he really kind of hinted at it right away, right, on McAfee, that this might be possible, and then it's sort of been just, you know, hints here and there and a little bit more lately. What are your thoughts about him attempting this comeback at the end of the season?
Well, when he started saying that instantly, I said, look, in his mind, he's going to do it. And I feel like I'm pretty good at interpreting what Aaron has to say, you know, and, you know, usually with Aaron, you probably have found this, Kaz, in the times that you've been around him, there's no ambiguity, right? Every word is pretty calculated in terms of what he says and what he wants the perception and or reality to be. He's pretty good at controlling that. And I'm not a doctor. Occasionally I'll play one on TV, but I wasn't going to be the one to tell Aaron, like, I don't think that's medically possible. Then you start seeing him on the field and he's throwing. And I'm like, man, this might happen. Then the Jets start losing. It's funny that he got, cleared for that window today, right, as we're taping this, because I just got done with my radio show on SiriusXM, and I said, this is the first time, the interview he did with McAfee in his regular spot on Tuesday, I thought Aaron knew it wasn't going to happen. Based upon the Tuesday McAfee interview, whether it was him not being 100% or citing the Jets record, and look, and it's delicate, right? Someone with the Jets needs to tell him this isn't a good idea if the team is out of it. Because and I know how that sounds, and it's easier said than done. And obviously, Aaron being happy is paramount for the Jets. But, if I was giving Aaron advice, I would say, I know you want to be out there. I know it's important to him. I know he believes it. And I know he might be cleared medically, which, for NFL players, for any athlete, that's it. You're either cleared and you can play or you can't. I just would not want to see him exacerbate that thing and not be ready for next season, where we're going to run it all back, I think, in terms of the expectations for the Jets. This is not a rebuilding situation. The goal for the Jets next year will have, with Aaron Rodgers, will be a team that can go and make a Super Bowl caliber run.
This downward spiral, Adam, you're saying run it back, but do you run it back? Is it everyone across the board? Douglas, Saleh, we know Hackett's his buddy, so he's going to stay. But if this team finishes, it's not unrealistic to say they finish 4-13 with how inept this offense looks. I don't know who they could beat. Do you keep everyone and just run it back because Aaron wants everyone back?
So to me, Joe Douglas 100% comes back. And Joe Douglas, to me, has built a great roster, and I've used that word. Some people take exception to it. I think his drafts have been exceptional. I think he deserves a lot of credit. I think his stubborn nature on doubling down on Wilson, tripling down on Wilson, absolutely sucked the life out of the franchise. And, I'll go back to my take from the draft. I did not like the Wilson pick. And I thought they should have traded down, gotten a haul, and did exactly what Miami did. And whether you keep Darnold or got another quarterback, there were different options. That draft had too many great players. I was never a Wilson believer, thought he was a workout wonder. Okay, so last year you knew the answer, right? I mean, you saw him get benched. You saw how terrible he was. And after that Patriot game, I said, I'll never play again for this team. And the fact that, they kept him on, and I think they kind of got a little egotistical, and, Aaron will help him and guide him. I mean, I love Aaron, a Super Bowl run. So a 39-year-old coming off a thumb. I mean, I think the backup quarterback position was important for the Jets. So, look, I think he got really stubborn. It's okay to admit a mistake. I think Douglas had, maybe still has, a lot of stock with Jets fans, the media. He's assembled a great roster. I mean, Howie Roseman, I always call the draft the Howie Roseman Invitational. He drafted Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. And he cut Reagor because it's one of the worst draft picks of all time in decisions. It's not an exact science. And Douglas not admitting his fault, I have no idea. The Saleh piece fascinates the hell out of me, because there has never been one moment I've watched Robert Saleh coach a game and said, I believe in this guy. Now, I think there have been obstacles and injuries and issues and Zach Wilson that have obviously compromised how far and how good the Jets, how far they can go, how good they could be. But I've never viewed him as an in-game wizard. I think, as an example, not taking a knee with Boyle at the end of the half against Miami. I mean, that's as mind-numbing as it gets. You were in that game with Tua throwing, picks and not looking good, and momentum going to halftime, and Tim Boyle as your quarterback. I don't love his game management or his feel. Look, would I consider a coaching change and bringing in an offensive-minded coach to try and win? Absolutely. I keep Douglas. To me, I think what he did with Wilson is in a lot of ways unforgivable, because the Jets still had a shot to make the playoffs this year. I agree with what Kaz has been tweeting and writing. I went slow down on the Josh Dobbs thing, but I think there was a different way to handle Wilson in the offseason and also after Rodgers got hurt. But would I consider a coaching change? Absolutely. And to be even ultra specific, I would look into bringing in an offensive-minded head coach.
I think they're married, Adam. I think they are. I think Aaron signed up for Saleh, right?
Yep.
I think like we joke about Hackett, but he likes Saleh a lot, and I think that's real. And I don't think Aaron's going to want to have another coach, right? I think if Aaron, if you're like, hey, we're going to fire Saleh, he'll go, okay, give me Hackett as the head coach, and Jets can't do that. So,
Guys, I agree with you. And by
Yeah.
the way, that to me, at the end of the day, is enough of a reason if you're on the fence. And I don't even know if Salah's even on the hot seat, right? That's our conversation. That's what we do. If Aaron said, look, I'm playing for Robert Saleh, let's run this thing back, great. One more year. Let's go.
I think he deserves
I'm okay with
I think he
that.
deserves a year with a quarterback. I think he does.
Yeah.
I think he deserves a year. Let's see what he can do with a quarterback, because the quarterback position has been a disaster since he got here, partly of his own making. But I think he deserves a year with it. But what do you hear from Jets fans now on the show, Adam? Or are they all kind of in hiding? What are you hearing from them right now?
It was interesting for such a long time. I think everyone was trying to talk themselves in to Wilson. And it was just like, it was a sad state of affairs, right? Because, and I get it, because fans, you're a fanatic. And that means you're a little delusional. I mean that in a good way, right? You have this championship caliber defense. You have Garrett Wilson. You have Breece Hall. And you're thinking, all right, we'll be fine. And they believe in him. And I think everyone got a little bit duped by that Giants game, including the head coach.
The Chiefs game was really the one. I think the Chiefs game had everyone go, oh, look at this.
That is a brilliant point. And I think, and that was one I had to fight callers off and like, oh, he has it. I mean, he has it. And I think the win against the Giants obviously kind of confused everything, but you're 100% right. And Jets fans right now are despondent. They're livid, they're angry. And I think it's just a shame, because you have all these teams that are in the mix, in the hunt. And if they just could have won 2 of these games, they're absolutely in the conversation. And then guess what? We would be talking about Aaron Rodgers coming back as a real thing in terms of the playoffs. And then I think if you're a Jets fan, you wrap your brain around it and say, Aaron, bless you, and let's go.
Yeah.
I want to get back, though, to your point on Saleh, which I think is a great one, for one more year, right? Because I do think for Saleh, for me, there's a legit I don't know, right? And that could be at times, if you're a talk show host, the worst thing you could say. He's never blown me away or dazzled me, but you nailed it on the quarterback. And some his fault, some not. But I am absolutely willing, especially if I'm in the camp, and I am, where Joe Douglas should come back. Saleh, run it back one more time, try and win a Super Bowl. It's like 2023 didn't happen. I'd be okay with that.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm the sad, angry Jets fan after every game. We're doing a show and I'm just yelling and calling guys bums it's just being mean, but it's just out of emotion, because this was supposed to be a special year. Everything, Adam, leading up to it. One Jets drive, Hard Knocks, the videos, slow-mos of Aaron throwing. It was football porn. It was beautiful. It was a sight to behold. And now I can't look at him. Like, a first down is a big deal for the Jets. How far they have fallen. And the frustrating part about it is like, all right, Rodgers next year, but there's still so much that needs to be done. You got to go get receivers now. Cobb didn't work out. Hardman didn't work out. Corey Davis retired. You have one receiver. You got a couple tight ends and a running back. You got an offensive line with injured across the board, can't stay healthy. And you're just banking on this defense, which you could tell, Adam, you were at the game Friday. I was there. I was watching in a suite, so I was schmoozing and boozing it up in a suite. So I didn't have as good of a view where I was, but it's depressing to watch, and you can't just hold your hat on Rodgers coming back next year will be great, because there's still a lot of holes on this roster that need to be filled.
You make a great point too about Hard Knocks. It really was just such a love letter to Rodgers and to the Jets and Jets fans. And, the Jets don't get that in terms of, that kind of love and positivity, right? I mean, it's usually, butt fumbles and clown shows and clown cars on the back page of the New York Post. So, you know the deal. But I think the Jets are closer than maybe you're even saying, Jake. And I'm not saying that you're not wrong on the assessment in terms of what other holes they need to fill, starting to me with the offensive line. But I go back to that landscape, and even before you get to the wild card, those four teams the Chiefs can't catch a cold. I think Baltimore's beatable. Jacksonville's solid. I don't think they're a juggernaut. You saw Miami, and the Jets hung with them for a half until Tim Boyle did his thing in terms of the Hail Mary. I just think at worst case scenario, if they had a different backup quarterback, they would have been the Browns this year, and they would have been the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. I mean, those teams don't have offenses, and they're going to make the playoffs. So I don't think the Jets. Not that you're wrong on anything you said about personnel. I don't think they're that far away, which makes this year even more depressing.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Schein, and I think because I did something for the Post Plus, looking to the offseason, right? And I used this joke. I used this joke several years in a row that the Jets had to have a Noah's Ark offseason where they needed two of everything, because if you go to the roster 2020, 2021, they had nothing. They had nothing to hang their hat on. Right now, they need to get a left tackle in this place, right? Because Vera Tucker comes back healthy. He's your right tackle. Joe Tippmann is the kind of underrated story of the season. He looks like he's going to be your starting center for a long time. You bring Laken Tomlinson back at left guard. Now you've got to find a right guard. You can find one of those, draft a left tackle, and then they need a number 2 wide receiver. But Mike Evans is a free agent. T. Higgins is going to be a free agent. I think you could find one. I think if you add those two pieces, a left tackle and a number 2 receiver, this team is with anybody next year. So
100%.
There's your optimism, Jake.
And a backup quarterback.
And Jake, I'm with Kaz, and I'll give you an example. And that to me is where I think Saleh keeps his job, because if Rodgers is happy and Rodgers is recruiting, obviously we talk Lazard and Cobb. Look,
he's got to be a better GM this year, Adam.
It's going to be T. Higgins. It's going to be Devontae Adams. That's what we're talking about.
Devontae is an interesting one because you got to give up picks. I just don't know if I want to give up draft picks, but that's going to be the conversation of the offseason.
100%. I also happen to think T. Higgins is a great player. Without throwing that word around, if you had T. Higgins and Garrett Wilson, you could debate 1-2, however. That is a big time dominant, top of the heap 1-2 punch at the wide receiver position for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think they're going to give it all up for Adams. I'm throwing picks. I just think that chemistry is undeniable, and he's playing the GM role this year. Just don't give us any more Tim Boyles, any more backup Billy Turners, these turnstiles in the offensive line backups. Let's give him his one friend, Devontae, and then move on from that. Adam, how was your experience? It's been a dozen years since you've been at a game. How did you tailgate? Did you do the whole shebang? The weather wasn't terrible, wasn't terribly cold. How was the experience for you?
Weather was great. My wife's from Baltimore, so we drove up from Baltimore to the stadium. So we literally got there right before the game started. So my kids, though, again, never been to an NFL game, mesmerized by how different it was than the other sports. Going to Yankee Stadium, or when we'll take the train in from Westchester, or go to the Garden and drive in for a Knicks game. And it was awesome, and they can't wait to go back, and it was great, and they want to go back and tailgate. And listen, we'll wait for Rodgers next year, and we'll go back. I don't think we're going to any more games this season between the Jets and the Giants. That's not
Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, the Commanders. Oh, there you go, Jets Commanders.
Guys, can you imagine choosing to and spending time?
People have to be in a tough spot, because that's the game everyone has circled as Aaron would come back at. So people probably aren't selling their tickets just yet, but that's going to be Aaron could put them in the seats. That's about it.
That's true. And in that case, we never had this conversation.
That's part of my thinking, though, is that he might just come back for them to sell a few tickets those last few games. And
the tickets are sold, Jake. The tickets are sold. It's whether you want to resell them now. But I was listening to your show this morning when I was driving over to Florham Park, and I'm amazed at just how you can know all the sports and all the teams. You guys were talking about the basketball tournament, the NBA in-season basketball tournament, and you're breaking down the Sacramento Kings. Do you ever get a call where someone throws something at you or like, yeah, I have no idea about this team right now? Because I have a hard enough time knowing one team, and it seems like you know every team in every sport.
Oh, I appreciate that. And listen, there's a lot of work involved and a lot of sports watching, which is great. It's what we do, right? And my producer, Bob Stew, is remarkable and he's sensational. And, I also think, Kaz, there's obviously if I know what I'm going to talk about for the monologue, right? And today it was a different, like it's all NFL dominates on the show, but today was fun because we did college football playoff rankings and how that's going to equal the insanity this weekend. And NBA in season, which, frankly, I'm torn on, as you heard. I was happy the Knicks won. I don't know what Group B means, but people are into it and they're excited about it. I give the NBA credit for trying something different. Now, can someone throw something at you that you don't? Of course. But, that's where the call screening, and, I always see what the callers want to talk about. So there's always a method to the madness in terms of, okay.
Arkansas football comes up, you're like, all right, no.
Let me Google this real quick. See what the record is.
No, and not even that. It's more topic based. Like we had a guy on hold today who wanted to talk about Miami and Kentucky basketball, which was a good basketball game last night.
Yeah,
that wasn't on my list of things to talk about that I thought would resonate with people. So I didn't take the call today. Because that wasn't going to work, in my opinion. Now, certain days, you don't mind if you do a little bit of everything. Sometimes in the summer, and I always say our show does great with baseball, right? So I could do a baseball monologue on like 4 different games or topics. And that's licensed. We still take calls like we do a local show on the national basis, which to me is ridiculously cool and awesome and unique. So you have to, if you're listening, if you want to talk about the Padres, you have to believe that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to Padres. And I respect that if you're a diehard Padres fan, you watch more of the Padres than I do. It's part of that given. It's a hot button show. We're not if we're talking about the Padres bullpen, I should be fired. If we're talking about why the Padres are struggling, then that's a different topic for discussion. So, I love it. I love the radio show. It's awesome. So I love doing all the sports, but for me, it's funny. I was talking to our friend Steve Torrey, who's our program director, after the show today. These NFL shows and this time of year, I mean, whether it's the Jets insanity or Matt Canada getting fired or Bills and the Eagles or everyone's fired up about the Cowboys or the Niners, Eagles, Tommy DeVito, whatever it is, the NFL, there's nothing like this NFL season. It's just been incredible on so many different levels.
Yeah, third of league onto their backup and third string quarterbacks. It's been out of control. And hey, guys, don't talk down the Sacramento Kings. Fun watch. I needed one De'Aaron Fox point. He missed 8 free throws last night. Absolute bad beat of the year from one of the best players in the league, just missing free throws nonstop. 80% shooter. How does that happen? But that's just another night in the association, guys. Love the
betting
NBA.
On De'Aaron Fox total points? Is that what I'm getting?
It's a big bet. I needed 30 at 29, and he had 8 missed free throws.
Is that a cry for help, Jake?
He's a 30-point machine.
I think it's a cry for help, yeah.
Listen, I hit a nice 40-40 Luka Doncic and Donovan Mitchell last night, a little 40-40 club action while I was at the Knicks game. So that was lovely to see. So Adam talks about it all. You could hear it. And leading up, he's got now DA too. I used to run CBS Sports Radio's digital. So I worked with DA for a while. He's a great talent as well. So you got DA and Adam Schein back to back on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Time to Shine at CBS Sports Network, 6 p.m. And you could subscribe to the Rise and Shine podcast. Adam Schein on Twitter. Adam, great to catch up with you. Maybe take a break from Jets games because someone's going to score from 99. You had a receiver touchdown. You had a pick 6. Next, you're going to have like a field goal return for 99 or a punt return. You're going to have to find a different way to get a 99-yard touchdown.
Wait, but I'll tell you, and it's funny, and my wife caught it instantly too. One of the most favorite, like you go to a sporting event, it's something that you'll never see. Like we went this year I took the kids to Yankees, Washington, when Judge hit the 3 home runs. That was pretty awesome, right? We saw Ohtani Judge a couple of years ago now, where Judge robbed Ohtani. It was pretty incredible. The missed extra point. I've never seen a missed extra point in person. So that was pretty well. Just how bad that kick was missed. I'd never seen. It sounds crazy. I've never seen a missed extra point before.
Jets football. Catch the excitement.
You won't be in a normal game again. You only see obscure, ridiculous things. That's your brand right now, Adam.
I'll take it, Jake.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on Gangs All Here. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Sean.
Anything for you guys, as always.
Great stuff there from Adam Schein, friend of the program, tremendous personality, and a great dude. As that says, adios, episode 168 of Gangs All Here, a Jets podcast from the New York Post. Thanks to Andrew Hartz and the intern Mason Verdicchio for helping me in producing the show. Make sure you watch us on that New York Post Sports YouTube page. If you're watching right now, give us that thumbs up below. Comment below your predictions for Jets, Falcons. We appreciate your support. Last show, one of the most listened to of the season. It's like Joe Beningo and the Black Friday show. People just want to hear me and another guy rant about the Jets, and Kaz, keep it pretty sane. People always comment like Jake yelling as a fan and Kaz keeping it real like a normal person. Well, listen, I am a fan, so I'm going to speak like a fan because I root for the team. I'm not a journalist. I'm not like a beat writer. I'm a fan of the New York Jets. So if they make me mad, I'm mad. I'll say this, though. In the moment, you get very emotional and you kind of process things the next day and days later. And I don't like ever calling guys bums, like these undrafted rookies. These guys are NFL players. They're still incredible athletes. They're great people. Most of these guys are great people. And that's more in the emotion calling that. But I don't actually mean, this guy's a bum. This guy sucks. Like Zach Wilson sucks. Yes, that I do mean. But these are human beings too. So, if I say something in the moment and I'm mean in the moment, just know it's out of emotion and me being pissed off versus my actual emotions towards that person. Follow us on Twitter at Brian Coz, at Jake Brown Radio. I need another cup of coffee. For Brian Costello, I'm Jake Brown. We'll be back on Monday morning. Record on Sunday night after Jets-Falcons as we enter the month of December, and it is brick outside already, and I can already feel a cold coming on. I have to get my flu shot soon. Make sure I always forget to do that, and then I get sick. So get your flu shots. There's our message to close out the show. Enjoy the game, everyone. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk to you Monday right here on Gangs All Here. Thanks for listening.